The fire in that cabin snaps and breathes, pine smoke clinging to a navy coat, a hot cup warming hands that have held colder things. The narrator once thought leaving the battlefield meant reaching a safe zone, but brothers know the truth. Peace can be a thin fog. Silence can be worse than gunfire, because the ghosts of the past move soft. Then the breach comes, a winter town like Marquette, a bakery with warm light, a single mother named Hannah Brooks cornered at midnight, pressured to sign papers she does not understand. Derek Voss stands there with a tow truck and predator eyes, and Rex, the German shepherd, does not bark. Rex just watches, and the whole room feels heavier. So let the question land. When the wall is at the back, do brothers run, or do brothers hold the line?
Sophie.
Because the threat turns real when an unknown voice says Sophie's name, and when Richard Halden of Superior Harbor Logistics steps out of the shadows. Ethan Cole learns what every guardian learns. Control first, precision second, then action, only when it counts. Sit down, brothers. Hear the full story, and take the survival lesson with you. The Bell in the Snow. Lake Superior wind cut through Marquette like a knife, turning every breath into smoke. Ethan Cole kept both hands steady on the wheel anyway. The left one held the lane, the right one held the pain. His knee did that now, a deep ache that lived under the bone and woke up whenever winter decided to show off. He told himself it was just another stop, a warm drink, a quiet corner, then back on the road. No attachments, no scenes. That was the rule he'd learned the hard way. Rex sat in the passenger seat like he belonged there, 5 years old, black and tan coat clean despite the weather, ears upright and alert. His amber-brown eyes tracked the world beyond the windshield, not with fear, but with calculation. Rex didn't look at people the way most dogs did. He looked past them. He listened for the things humans missed, the slight hesitation in a step, the speed of a breath, the shape of danger before it announced itself. When Ethan's truck rolled past a quiet stretch of storefronts, Rex shifted once, nose lifting. A scent on the wind. Oil. Metal. Cold rubber. Ethan didn't ask what it meant. He'd learned to trust that pause. A sign ahead flickered through falling snow. Quinn's Hearth. A small bakery, the kind that shouldn't have been open this late, but was anyway. The warm glow behind the glass looked like a promise. Ethan pulled into the lot slowly. The tires crunched on packed snow. He stepped out, and the cold hit him hard enough to make his eyes water. Navy winter parka, mid-thigh length. Red and black plaid flannel underneath. Faded jeans. Brown, low-cut leather boots. He didn't dress to impress. He dressed to survive. Rex jumped down beside him, moving close without crowding. No noise, no show. Just presence. Inside, the air smelled like yeast and cinnamon and coffee that had been sitting too long. The heaters rattled. A row of stools lined the counter like tired soldiers. Behind the counter, a woman wiped the surface with a rag that looked close to falling apart. Hannah Brooks, early 30s, slim but worn down in the shoulders, like she'd been carrying invisible weight too long. Her face was pale from late nights, cheekbones sharp, lips chapped from winter air. Light brown hair was pulled into a messy bun, strands escaping to frame tired eyes the color of weak tea. She wore a simple gray sweater under a flour-dusted apron and practical shoes that had seen better days. Her smile showed up fast, but it wasn't easy. It was a habit, a shield. "Hi," she said, voice soft, polite. "Sorry, we're kind of near closing." Ethan nodded once. He didn't smile back. Not because he didn't want to, but because smiles sometimes invited questions. "Coffee," he said, "and whatever's warm." Hannah glanced toward a pot on the warmer, then toward the small soup kettle. "I've got potato soup left. It's not fancy, but it's hot." "That works." Rex sat by Ethan's boots, head angled slightly, watching Hannah. Not fixed, not aggressive, just aware. A man hovered near the door, as if the warmth inside might reject him. He looked late 60s, maybe older, bent at the spine like the cold had been pushing him down for years. His gray beard was uneven. His eyes were watery and bright, and his hands were red and cracked. A thin coat hung off him, and his boots were held together by stubbornness. He didn't step forward. He didn't meet anyone's gaze. He stared at the floor like it might swallow him if he asked for anything. Hannah noticed him too. Ethan could see it in the way her shoulders tightened. The bakery was quiet enough that every sound landed hard. The hum of the heater, the distant rush of wind outside, the clink of a spoon against ceramic. Ethan opened his wallet and took out a bill. "Add another bowl," he said, low. "To go." Hannah blinked. "For you?" Ethan's eyes went briefly to the man near the door. Hannah followed the look. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She glanced down at her register like it might scold her. Then she nodded, fast, like she was afraid she'd change her mind. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I'll do that." She poured coffee into a mug and set it down for Ethan. The mug was chipped, but it was clean. She moved like someone who knew the rhythm of 1,000 late nights. Ethan took the mug. The heat steadied him more than he wanted to admit. Rex didn't drink. He didn't beg. He watched the door. Hannah packed the second bowl carefully, placed it into a paper bag with a couple of rolls, then walked toward the man. "Sir," she said gently, It's cold out. Here." The man's hands lifted, uncertain. His voice came out cracked. I can't. It's already paid," Hannah said, a little firmer. "Please, just take it." He looked at the bag like it was a miracle. Then he looked at Hannah like she'd just handed him something bigger than food. His eyes filled. He nodded, quick and small, and clutched the bag to his chest. Ethan didn't watch for long. He'd learned that staring at gratitude could feel like taking credit. Outside, the wind howled. Then it changed. A low, mechanical growl slid into the parking lot, heavy and confident. Headlights threw pale beams across the snow like searchlights. Rex stood. Not fast, not loud, just up, body aligned toward the glass. Ethan's shoulders tightened. Through the window, a tow truck rolled forward and stopped with the kind of precision that said the driver had done this 1,000 times. The engine kept running. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out who looked mid-40s, thick through the chest, jaw set like a vice. Derek Voss. His hair was dark and cut short, damp from the weather. His face was marked by old scars near his eyebrow and a permanent sneer that made kindness look like an insult. He wore a black jacket with reflective stripes, heavy work pants, and gloves that never came off. 2 younger men followed, late 20s to early 30s, broad and restless. One had a buzz cut and a neck tattoo that climbed toward his ear. The other had long hair tied back and eyes that kept darting like he was searching for exits. They walked in together. The bell above the door rang. The warmth inside felt smaller immediately. Hannah froze with her hand still on the counter rag. Color drained from her face. Derek's gaze swept the room and landed on her like he'd found what he came for. Then his eyes flicked to Ethan, to Rex. His smile tightened. Not friendly. Testing. "Evenin'," Derek said, voice low, casual in a way that was meant to sound harmless. "Still open?" Hannah's voice came thin. "We're closing up." Derek took a step closer anyway. His boots left wet prints on the floor. "We can be quick," he said. "Just need a word." Hannah swallowed. Her eyes moved once toward the door, then away, like she knew running wouldn't help. Ethan didn't move. He didn't square up. He didn't reach for anything. He just watched, calm as a stone in cold water. Rex stood at Ethan's side, silent, black and tan shoulders tight, eyes locked on Derek's hands. Derek noticed. He paused half a beat, just enough to show the dog mattered. Then he leaned on the counter, too close to Hannah's space, and spoke like he was doing her a favor. "We need to settle that paperwork," Derek said. "Tonight." Hannah's breath caught. Her fingers curled around the rag until her knuckles whitened. Ethan's coffee sat untouched now. Rex didn't growl. He didn't bark. He simply watched like a silent alarm. Derek Voss looked past Ethan, then back again, and the corner of his mouth lifted like he'd decided something. Outside, the tow truck engine revved, a long, ugly sound that shook the window glass. Derek Voss glanced at Ethan, and then stopped on Rex, his smile warping, as if he'd just realized he didn't hold the room anymore. Right then, the tow truck outside roared its engine again, like a message that tonight was only the beginning. Paperwork and pressure. Derek Voss kept his elbows on the counter like he owned the wood, the warmth, the air between people. Hannah Brooks stood behind the register with the rag still clenched in her fist. Her eyes flicked once toward the back hallway, then back to Derek. She looked 31 up close, with faint lines at the corners of her mouth that didn't belong to someone that young. The kind you earned from smiling through stress. "I told you," she said quietly. "I need a little time." Derek's smile stayed in place, but it wasn't a smile. It was a warning with teeth. "Time costs," he said, "and it's already late." One of his guys drifted to the side, blocking the view of the door. Late 20s, thick neck, buzz cut, tattoo curling up behind his ear. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. His posture said he was waiting for permission. The other one, early 30s with long hair tied back, paced near the pastry case like he was browsing. His eyes kept moving. Not nervous, hunting. Ethan Cole didn't stand up. He stayed on the stool, navy winter parka still on, red and black plaid flannel visible at the collar. Faded jeans, brown leather boots planted solidly. His left knee stiffened under the table, but he didn't show it on his face. Rex stood at Ethan's side, black and tan body angled toward the counter. Ears forward, mouth closed. A quiet statue that could turn into lightning if it had to. Ethan watched Derek's hands. Gloves. Thick. Dry. Not the kind you wore just to keep warm. He listened the way you listened to a room when your life had depended on it. Hannah's breathing was shallow. Derek's was slow and steady, like he enjoyed this. The two men were out of sync, which meant they were waiting for a cue. Ethan didn't like cues. "What paperwork?" he asked, voice even. Derek's eyes snapped toward him. He looked Ethan over, from the boots to the shoulders to the calm in his face. Then he glanced at Rex again, and the muscle in his jaw twitched. "This ain't your business," Derek said. Ethan nodded like he accepted that, but his eyes didn't move. Maybe, Ethan said. Still asking. Hannah swallowed. Her voice came out thin. It's my car. They towed it. Derek leaned closer to her, too close. Not they. Me. Because you parked where you weren't supposed to. I was at work, Hannah said. My shift. And you were late paying the release fee, Derek cut in. He slapped a folded sheet of paper on the counter. Now there's storage, and processing, and a late penalty. Hannah stared at the paper like it might bite her. That's not what you told me yesterday. Derek's smile widened a fraction. Yesterday was yesterday. Ethan didn't touch the paper. He didn't need to. He counted angles instead. Derek between Hannah and the back hallway, Buzzcut blocking the door, Longhair near the case, close enough to grab something if he wanted. A cramped bakery, 2 exits, 1 narrow. Ethan took a slow sip of coffee that had gone lukewarm. It wasn't for thirst. It was to keep the room from seeing him decide. Rex shifted his weight. 1 step. Not forward, just into a better position. The movement was small, but it changed the air. Like a chess piece sliding onto a square everyone forgot mattered. Derek noticed it. He cleared his throat, and his voice softened like he was trying on kindness. Listen, Hannah. I'm not the bad guy here. I'm trying to help you clean this up. You sign, you get a payment plan. Nice and simple. Hannah's eyes lifted, and for a second Ethan saw something under the fear. Anger. Pride. The last tiny fence around her dignity. I'm not signing anything I don't understand, she said. Buzzcut laughed once, low and ugly. Then you can walk. Hannah flinched. Ethan didn't. He spoke without raising his voice. She said she doesn't understand it. Derek's gaze hardened. You a lawyer now? No, Ethan said. Just someone who reads before he signs. Longhair drifted closer to the counter, fingers tapping the glass case. This ain't a library. Ethan's eyes finally moved to him, just for a second. Longhair stopped tapping. Ethan looked back to Derek. If the fees are legit, you won't mind waiting while she calls somebody. Derek snorted. It's midnight. Phones work at midnight, Ethan said. Hannah blinked at him, surprised, like she'd forgotten people could suggest simple solutions. Derek's patience cracked. I'm done playing. Sign it, Hannah. He pushed a pen toward her. Hannah's hand hovered, trembling. Rex did not bark. He simply stared at the pen like it was a weapon. Ethan's voice stayed flat. Don't. Derek froze for half a beat. Not because Ethan was loud, because Ethan was certain. Derek leaned in again, and his tone dropped to something private and sharp. You know what happens when people make things hard for me? Hannah's eyes filled. Please, she whispered. Ethan slid off the stool slowly, careful with his left leg. He didn't rush. Rushing made people jumpy. Jumpy made mistakes. He stood between Derek and Hannah, not close enough to touch, just close enough to change the geometry. Rex mirrored him, shoulder aligned with Ethan's shin, head level, eyes locked on Derek's hands. Derek stared up at Ethan. Ethan was tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of frame that made doorways feel smaller. His beard was trimmed, a few gray strands at the temples. His dark brown eyes weren't angry. They were measured. You touch her, Ethan said, and this gets loud. Derek's nostrils flared. You threatening me? Ethan shook his head once. No, I'm stating outcomes. Buzzcut shifted, half a step forward. Rex's ears pinned slightly, and his gaze snapped to Buzzcut. Still silent. But Buzzcut stopped moving, like his brain had finally caught up to his body. Derek saw it. He hated it. His eyes narrowed. "Who the hell are you?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He didn't like labels. Labels made things stick. But Hannah was shaking, and Derek was feeding off it. So Ethan gave him just enough. "Name's Ethan Cole," he said. "Former Navy SEAL." Derek's smile faltered. Not gone, just recalculated. Longhair swallowed and looked away, suddenly interested in the snow outside. Derek recovered fast, covering the slip with a scoff. "SEAL, huh? Then you should know how the world works. People pay what they owe." Hannah's voice broke. "I don't owe that." Ethan looked at the paper for the first time. He didn't read every word, just the bones. Amounts, dates, a signature line that felt like a trap door. He pointed at one section. "This isn't a release fee. This is an agreement." Derek's eyes flashed. "It's standard." Ethan's tone stayed calm. "Standard for who?" Derek slapped his palm on the counter. The sound cracked through the bakery like a gunshot. Hannah jumped. Rex didn't. He held position, eyes unblinking, a silent wall. Ethan didn't move either. He let the silence stretch until Derek could hear his own breathing. Then Ethan spoke, soft as snow. "Back up. Take your pen. Leave." Derek stared at him, deciding how far he could push without losing face. Outside, the tow truck engine idled like a beast waiting for meat. Derek finally snatched the pen, shoved the paper back into his jacket, and leaned in close enough that Ethan could smell the cold tobacco on him. "This isn't over," Derek said. "Not for her, not for you." Ethan didn't blink. "Go." Derek stepped back, gave Rex one last look that tried to be fearless, then turned toward the door. Buzzcut and Longhair followed, shoulders tight. The bell jingled again as they left. For a moment, the bakery didn't breathe. Then Hannah's knees buckled, and she grabbed the edge of the counter. Ethan caught her elbow, steady but gentle, and guided her to the stool. "Sit." Hannah wiped at her face fast, embarrassed by the tears. "I'm sorry. I didn't want anyone dragged into this." Ethan glanced toward the window. The tow truck's taillights glowed red through the snowfall. "You didn't drag me," he said. He walked in. Rex remained standing, eyes tracking the truck until it pulled out of the lot. Ethan's jaw tightened. Not with anger, with focus. He'd seen men like Derek Voss before. Different uniforms, same hunger. And hunger didn't stop because it missed one meal. When the truck turned the corner, Rex's head lifted sharply, nose twitching. Ethan followed his gaze. Across the street, a second vehicle sat with its lights off, engine running low. Watching. Ethan's stomach sank, cold and familiar. He set his coffee down, slow, like he had all the time in the world. But his mind was already moving. Because the night wasn't over. And it wasn't just Hannah on the line anymore. Cold eyes across the street. Ethan waited until the tow truck's red taillights disappeared into the snow before he moved. He didn't rush. Rushing invited mistakes, and mistakes got people hurt. Across the street, the dark vehicle sat with its lights off, engine low, like a predator breathing through its nose. Ethan tracked it the way he'd tracked trouble in other places, other winters, when the stakes had been higher and the rules had been clearer. Rex stood at the window, body still, ears forward. His nose lifted once, then again, sampling the air that seeped through the doorframe. Gasoline, damp wool, a faint bite of cheap cologne. The dog's gaze never left the black shape outside. Hannah Brooks sat on a stool behind the counter, both hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't tasted. Her cheeks were wet, but she held her chin up like she was fighting not to fall apart in front of a stranger. "I'm sorry," she said again, voice tight. I shouldn't have let them see me scared." Ethan leaned against the counter, navy parka creasing at the elbows, red and black flannel at his collar, faded jeans. Boots planted as if the bakery floor were a map. His left knee throbbed, but he kept his weight balanced, ready. "Fear isn't the problem," he said. "It's isolation." Hannah blinked. "What?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He watched the street. The dark vehicle shifted slightly. A small roll forward, then stop. The engine note changed, like someone touched the pedal and lifted off. A test. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He didn't look at Hannah. He didn't want her staring at the window. He didn't want her giving them anything for free. "Do you have a phone?" he asked. Hannah nodded fast, reaching into her apron pocket. She set it on the counter like she was afraid to hold it wrong. Ethan slid the phone toward himself without picking it up. He didn't like touching other people's things when adrenaline was in the room. "Who do you trust in this town?" he asked. Hannah's lips parted. No answer came at first. That silence told Ethan more than words. "There's Officer Lucas Grant," she said finally. He's good, but he can't do much unless he catches them." Ethan nodded once. "Call him. Don't mention me. Just say Derek Voss came in again, threatened you, and there's a vehicle watching from across the street." Hannah stared. "He'll ask questions." "Answer what you can," Ethan said. "Facts only." Facts were clean. Facts were weapons that didn't bruise knuckles. Hannah lifted the phone with trembling fingers. She stepped into the back hallway for privacy, voice low, trying not to cry again. Ethan stayed by the front, using the reflection in the window to watch both the room and the street. If someone walked in, he'd see their shape before they saw his face. Rex turned his head slightly, checking the back hallway where Hannah had gone, then back to the street. Protect the weak, watch the threat. 2 jobs, 1 mind. Outside, snow fell in tight spirals under the streetlight, like the world was being erased and rewritten at the same time. Ethan's mind did what it always did when danger loomed. He built a plan. Exit routes, distance, cover, timing. The bakery had 2 doors, front and back. The back hallway led to an alley with snow piled high, but it was a route. The counter could be cover for Hannah if someone came in shooting their mouth off, but not if they came in swinging. He didn't think they'd shoot. Men like Derek preferred fear that lasted, but he didn't bet his life on what he hoped. Hannah returned a minute later, eyes red, breathing uneven. "He's coming," she whispered. "He said to lock the doors and wait." Ethan glanced at the dark vehicle again. It hadn't moved. "Good," he said. Not because it was good, but because it was something. He walked to the front door and flipped the sign to closed. His movement was deliberate. No panic, no signal. Then he locked the door. Rex shifted closer to Ethan's leg, still silent. Hannah swallowed hard. "What do they want from me?" Ethan finally looked at her. What's the paper he tried to make you sign? Hannah hesitated, then reached under the counter and pulled out a crumpled copy. The edges were torn like she'd grabbed it in a hurry earlier. Ethan didn't snatch it. He took it slow, eyes scanning lines the way he'd scanned maps before missions. Amounts, dates, a clause that turned a fee into a confession. He tapped the page with one finger. This gives him leverage, not just money. Control. Hannah's face tightened. I just wanted my car back. Ethan nodded. That's how it starts. A sound cut through the storm. A single knock on the glass. Not the door. The window. Ethan didn't flinch, but Rex's eyes snapped toward it, head angled, muscles tight. A man stood outside with a knit cap pulled low. Late 30s, average build, face half hidden by a scarf. He raised 2 fingers, then pointed down the street like he was signaling Ethan to look. Ethan didn't look away from the man's hands. The man stepped back, lifted his phone, and turned it so Ethan could see the screen through the glass. A video paused on a frame. Derek Voss's tow truck parked behind the bakery earlier. Someone loading something into a vehicle in the alley. Ethan's pulse slowed. Caleb. He didn't know the name yet, but he recognized the type. A local kid who'd seen too much and finally decided to stop swallowing it. Ethan cracked the door 2 inches, body angled so the man outside couldn't see Hannah. Say it, Ethan said. The man's voice came quick. Name's Caleb Pierce. I work at the garage down the road. I've seen him do this to people. He says it's fees, but it's a trap. I recorded him dumping stuff behind here, trying to make it look like you stole it. Hannah's breath hitched behind Ethan. What? Ethan kept the door at 2 inches. Why tell me? Caleb's eyes flicked to Rex, then back. Because you didn't look scared of him, and because she looked like my sister did when she got cornered. Ethan nodded once. That was enough. Sirens didn't arrive, not yet, but a patrol car rolled slowly into view at the far end of the street, lights off, cautious. Officer Lucas Grant approached on foot through the snow, one hand near his belt, shoulders squared. Early 40s, medium height, solid build, clean-shaven with short sandy hair. His eyes were tired, but they were honest. He wore a thick police jacket and gloves, moving like someone who knew every inch of this town. Lucas stopped at the bakery door and glanced at Ethan, then at Rex. You called, he said to Hannah, voice calm. Hannah stepped forward, holding herself together by force. Yes, Derek was here. He threatened me again. Lucas's gaze sharpened. And the vehicle across the street? Ethan spoke before Hannah could. Still there. Lights off. Engine on. Watching. Lucas looked at Ethan fully now. Who are you? Ethan kept his tone neutral. Ethan Cole. Lucas paused, eyes flicking to Ethan's stance, the way he held the room without touching it. Military? Used to be, Ethan said. Lucas nodded like he'd already guessed. All right, here's what we're not doing. Nobody goes outside alone. A smart rule. Lucas stepped back into the snow, raising his radio slightly, talking low. The patrol car shifted position to face the dark vehicle. Not aggressive, just present. The dark vehicle finally moved. It rolled forward slow, then turned away like it hadn't been there for the last 10 minutes. A retreat, not a surrender. Lucas watched it go, jaw tight. That wasn't random. No, Ethan said. Hannah's hands trembled. So what now? Ethan looked at the paper again, then at Caleb's phone, then at the empty street where the vehicle had been. He'd come to Marquette for a quiet night. Now the town had a pulse under the snow, and it was running fast. Lucas lowered his radio. "I'll take your statement," he said to Hannah. "And I want that video." Caleb nodded, swallowing hard. "I'll send it." Ethan felt Rex shift beside him, eyes narrowing toward the street, as if the dog could hear something the rest of them couldn't yet. Ethan didn't relax. Men like Derek Voss didn't stop because someone said no. They stopped when the cost got too high. And Ethan had a feeling Derek was about to raise the cost. The alley behind the warm light. Snow kept falling, soft and steady, as if the town wanted to hide its own heartbeat. By the time Officer Lucas Grant finished taking Hannah's statement, the bakery felt smaller, like every wall had leaned in to listen. The cinnamon smell was still there, but it couldn't compete with the metallic taste of fear that lingered in the air. Ethan Cole stayed near the front window, shoulders squared inside his navy winter parka. The red and black plaid flannel at his collar made him look almost ordinary, like any man passing through. Only his eyes gave him away, dark brown and alert, measuring the street the way you measured water before stepping in. Rex stood beside him, quiet, black and tan coat catching the warm light. His ears never stopped moving. He didn't bark when the patrol car idled. He didn't whine when Hannah's voice shook. He simply watched, as if his silence was the last line of defense. Caleb Pierce hovered near the pastry case, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. He looked 24 or 25, lean and slightly hunched, with a narrow face and chapped cheeks from working outdoors. His brown hair was hidden under a knit cap, but a few curls escaped at the edges. He wore a grease-stained hoodie under a denim jacket, and his eyes had the restless guilt of someone who'd ignored wrong things for too long. Lucas lowered his notepad. "You did the right thing," he told Caleb. Caleb's mouth twitched. "Feels late." "Late is still better than never," Lucas said. Hannah sat with both hands around her mug again, but this time the shaking had slowed. She looked like she was trying to memorize Ethan's calm, as if it might become her own. Ethan turned from the window. "Where did you record that?" he asked Caleb. Caleb swallowed. "Back alley, behind the bakery. Derek parks there sometimes. He thinks nobody looks." Ethan's gaze flicked toward the back hallway. Lucas stiffened. "No one is going out there alone." Ethan nodded. Agreed. He didn't like splitting up, not in tight spaces and low light. The safest move was always simple, boring, and controlled. "Lucas," Ethan said, "you and Caleb stay at the door. I take one step into the alley, only to confirm what was moved. Hannah stays inside." Hannah opened her mouth, like she wanted to argue. Ethan looked at her once, not harsh, just final. "Inside." She nodded. Her pride didn't like it, but her fear liked being told what to do. Lucas eyed Ethan. "You sure you need to do that?" Ethan didn't say yes. He just moved. Rex rose with him, already aligned, already ready. They went down the back hallway. The air changed, colder, damp with the smell of old flour and mop water. Ethan kept his steps quiet, boots landing soft on the worn tile. His knee protested. He ignored it. Lucas unlocked the back door and opened it a crack. The alley was a narrow channel of snowbanks and shadow. A single security light buzzed above the dumpster, casting a harsh cone of pale light. Ethan paused at the threshold. He didn't step out. He listened. No voices. No footsteps. Just the distant hiss of wind and the faint crunch of a car tire somewhere far away. Rex's nose lifted. He inhaled once, then twice. The dog's body stiffened, not with excitement, with warning. Ethan followed Rex's gaze. Near the dumpster, a black trash bag sat crooked, like someone had dropped it in a hurry. It didn't belong there. The bakery's trash was stacked neatly against the wall. Ethan didn't touch it. He didn't have to. He could see the outline of something rectangular under the plastic. A small cardboard box. Caleb leaned forward from behind Lucas's shoulder. "That's what I filmed," he whispered. "They tossed a box back there, then drove off. Like they wanted it found." Ethan's jaw tightened. A planted item. A staged discovery. The oldest trick in the book. Lucas's voice went flat. "I can bag it as evidence." Ethan held up a hand. "Wait," he said. "Look first." Lucas frowned. "Without touching it?" Ethan nodded. "Angle the light. Read the labels. See what story they want you to tell." Lucas shifted his flashlight, beam skimming the bag. The plastic caught the light, and for a second Ethan saw the edge of a shipping label taped to the box. Not the bakery's name. Not Hannah's. A corporate logo, clean and modern, printed in black and blue. Superior Harbor Logistics. Lucas went still. "That company." Hannah's voice floated from the hallway behind them. She had crept close, unable to help herself. Ethan didn't turn. "What about it?" Hannah swallowed. "They do contracts around town. Warehouse work. Shipping. They're big. People don't mess with them." Caleb muttered, "Derek does towing for them sometimes." Lucas's flashlight trembled slightly, then steadied. "That's a problem," he said. Ethan felt the shape of the trap tighten. This wasn't just a bully squeezing a single mom. This was a machine that needed people quiet, broke, and afraid. Lucas backed up, closing the door carefully. "I'm calling for a unit to secure the alley. We do this by the book." Ethan approved of that. The book kept chaos from spreading. But books also took time. And men like Derek Voss used time as a weapon. Back inside, Hannah's phone buzzed on the counter. She stared at the screen like it was a snake. Unknown number. She didn't answer. It buzzed again. Then again. Caleb's face drained. "That's how they do it," he said. "They don't stop. They just keep pressing until you crack." Ethan stepped closer. "Put it on speaker. Don't say your name." Hannah's fingers shook as she answered. A man's voice filled the bakery, smooth and calm, the kind of voice that sounded expensive. "Hannah Brooks," the voice said. Hannah's blood turned to ice. "Who is this?" A soft chuckle. "Someone who doesn't like problems." Ethan's eyes narrowed. He watched Hannah's posture, the way her shoulders pulled inward. Fear was trying to fold her in half. "You have a child," the voice continued, polite as a cashier. "A little girl. Sophie, right?" Hannah's hand flew to her mouth. Rex's head lifted sharply. His ears pinned forward and a low sound vibrated in his chest. Not a bark, not loud, but real. Ethan placed a hand near Rex's shoulder, not to restrain him, to ground him. "Listen carefully," the voice said. "Derek offered you a simple solution. You refused. That's unfortunate." Lucas stepped forward, face hard. "This line is being recorded," he said. The voice didn't react. "Officer Grant," it replied smoothly, like it had been waiting. "Always so eager to be a hero with limited tools." Lucas's eyes widened. Ethan's stomach sank. They knew Lucas by name. They knew Hannah's daughter. This wasn't Derek's brain. Derek was the muscle. The voice belonged to someone who wore gloves that never got dirty. "You will sign the agreement tomorrow," the voice said, "or your little bakery friends will have a very unpleasant surprise." Hannah's knees almost gave out. Ethan kept his voice calm. "You're making threats over a phone line?" Another chuckle. "I'm offering choices." Ethan looked at Lucas. Lucas nodded once, slow. Tracing call. Not fast enough. The voice lowered. "And who is the man with the dog?" it asked, suddenly curious. "He moved into town, and Derek came back with bruised pride." Ethan felt the room tighten. Even the heater seemed quieter. He didn't answer. Silence was sometimes the only safe lie. The voice waited, then sighed. "Fine. Keep your secrets. But understand this. Winter roads are slippery. Accidents happen." The call ended. Hannah stood frozen, tears spilling without sound. Caleb whispered, "They're going to hurt her." Lucas clenched his jaw so hard a muscle jumped in his cheek. "I'm putting a patrol on her block tonight." Ethan's mind was already ahead, mapping what could happen before sunrise. Rex walked to the front window and stared out into the snow-dark street, as if he could see the next move coming. Ethan took a slow breath. He'd come here to pass through. Now he had a single mother, a witness, a good cop, and a corporate logo that didn't belong in a bakery alley. He looked down at Hannah's crumpled paperwork on the counter. This wasn't just about a car. This was about control, dressed up as business. And somewhere in Marquette, someone was already planning the next accident. The cost of winter. The snow outside Quinn's hearth looked calm, but Ethan Cole knew better. Winter didn't have to scream to be dangerous. It could whisper. It could slick the road, soften a curb, hide a patch of ice where a tire would lose faith in the ground. It could turn an accident into something no one questioned. Inside the bakery, the warmth felt fragile. Hannah Brooks sat rigid at the counter, her phone still in her hand like it might ring again and finish what the first call started. She looked smaller than she had an hour ago, as if the voice on the line had stolen inches from her spine. Officer Lucas Grant spoke into his radio near the front door, voice controlled, eyes sharp. He was moving pieces the way a tired man moved pieces when he'd done it too many times and still refused to quit. Caleb Pierce stood with his shoulders hunched, guilt written across his face. He looked like he wanted to vanish, but he stayed. That mattered. Rex paced once, then stopped beside Ethan. Black and tan coat, ears up, eyes steady. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He pressed the room with quiet attention, the way a storm pressed the lake before it broke. Ethan kept his hands loose at his sides. Navy parka, red and black flannel, faded jeans, brown boots. He looked like a man just passing through, but his mind was already building a perimeter. "Lucas," Ethan said softly, "how many units can you spare?" Lucas glanced over, jaw tight. "Not enough for what you're thinking." Ethan nodded. "Then we don't think loud." Hannah's voice cracked. They said my daughter." "Sophie is where?" Lucas asked, turning to her. Hannah swallowed hard. "At my neighbor's, Mrs. Mabel Quinn. She lives 2 streets over. She watches Sophie when I work late." Ethan's eyes flicked to the streetlight glow outside. 2 streets over was close enough to walk, close enough for someone to follow, close enough for a slip on the ice. "Lucas," Ethan said, "put a unit on Mabel's block. Not parked right in front. Quiet. Down the street. Let them think the town is asleep. Lucas hesitated. Ethan didn't push. He gave him the truth. They threatened a child. That changes rules. Lucas nodded once and spoke into his radio again, voice low, careful. Ethan turned to Caleb. That video you got, you kept the original? Caleb nodded quickly. Yeah, it's on my phone and I backed it up. Send it, Ethan said, to Lucas, and to yourself, and to someone you trust outside this town. Caleb blinked. Why outside? Ethan met his eyes. Because if they can find Hannah's daughter, they can find a phone. Caleb's throat bobbed. He nodded and started typing with shaking fingers. Hannah looked at Ethan like she wanted to ask why he was doing any of this. Like she couldn't understand why a stranger would stay when it would be easier to leave. Ethan didn't explain. Explanations were for people who had time. He walked to the back hallway and checked the door again. Lock intact. No signs of tampering. Then he moved to the front window and watched the street. Rex followed, stopping beside him, head angled toward the wind. Ethan trusted that angle. A few minutes passed. Then Rex's ears twitched. Not toward the road, toward the alley. Ethan's pulse tightened. He didn't move fast. He moved clean. He leaned closer to the glass, using the reflection of the bakery light to keep his eyes hidden. The alley behind the bakery was mostly shadow, except for the security light by the dumpster. Nothing moved. Then a small shape crossed the light. A hand. Gloved. Ethan's jaw set. Lucas saw it too. He stepped up beside Ethan, voice low. You saw that? Yeah, Ethan said. Hannah's breath hitched behind them. Caleb whispered, They're gonna plant something. Ethan nodded. Or take something. Lucas's radio crackled softly. A unit was in position near Mabel's street. Another was circling. Not enough, but better than nothing. Ethan looked at Lucas. We don't open the back door. We don't chase into dark. We let them commit to a move, then we trap it with light. Lucas's eyes narrowed. You got a plan in a bakery? Ethan's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Bakeries have cameras. Hannah blinked. We do. The owner installed them last year. Ethan pointed gently. Show Lucas. Now. Hannah moved fast, leading Lucas behind the counter to a small monitor. The camera feed flickered to life. The alley camera. The security light buzzed in the frame. The dumpster sat like a black box. Snow drifted sideways. Then a figure stepped into view. Not Derek. Smaller. Faster. Late 20s maybe, hood up, face mostly hidden. He carried a box under one arm. Ethan's eyes locked. The figure moved toward the dumpster, crouched, and slid the box into the black bag. Then he paused. He looked up, directly at the camera, and waved. A casual little wave, like he was in on a joke. Anna covered her mouth. Lucas's face hardened. That's obstruction. That's intimidation. Ethan's voice stayed steady. That's a message. The figure stood, dusted his gloves, and walked away into the snow. Lucas grabbed his radio, issuing calm instructions. Unit 2, hold position. Do not pursue. Unit 3, move to alley mouth. Lights off. Ethan felt the tension stretch. They wanted a chase. They wanted someone angry, someone reckless. They weren't getting it. Minutes later, headlights appeared at the far end of the street. A tow truck.
gray. Derek Voss rolled into view like he owned the road. He parked in front of the bakery, engine idling, then climbed out. He looked confident again. His shoulders were broad. His face was set. His gloved hands moved like he was already writing the ending. He walked to the front door and yanked the handle. Locked. He leaned close to the glass, eyes scanning. Ethan stood where he could be seen. Not aggressive, just there.
Rex stood beside him, ears up, gaze steady. Derek's lips curled. "You still here?" he mouthed through the glass. Ethan didn't respond. He simply lifted one finger and pointed, not at Derek, at the camera above the door. Derek's smile faltered. Lucas stepped forward, badge visible, voice raised just enough to carry through the door. "Derek Voss, step away from the entrance." Derek backed up slowly, hands lifted like he was innocent. "Officer Grant, you guys working late?" Lucas didn't move. "We've got a report of intimidation, and we've got footage." Derek's eyes flicked to Ethan again, then to Rex, then to the street behind him. He was calculating exits. Ethan noticed something else. The tow truck's passenger door was slightly ajar, just a crack. A second man inside. The real muscle. Ethan didn't tense. He just shifted his stance so his left side was protected and his right side had space. He didn't want to look ready. He wanted to be ready. Lucas spoke again. "Derek, we're securing the alley as evidence. You're not going back there." Derek shrugged. "I don't know what you're talking about." Lucas raised his hand, and the patrol car down the street flicked on its lights. Blue and red spilled across the snow. In the same moment, another set of headlights swung into the alley mouth. A second unit, right where Ethan predicted they'd be needed. The trap closed with light, not fists. Derek's shoulders dropped a fraction. The passenger door of the tow truck opened. A man stepped out. Mid-50s, tall, well-fed, too clean for Marquette winter work. He wore a long, dark coat and leather gloves that looked new. His hair was silver at the temples, combed neat. His face was smooth, smile practiced, eyes cold. He didn't look like a tow guy. He looked like a boardroom. He glanced at Lucas like he was a nuisance, then at Ethan like he was a puzzle. "Evening," the man said, voice polished. "This is all a misunderstanding." Lucas's chin lifted. "Identify yourself." The man smiled wider. "Richard Halden, Superior Harbor Logistics." Hannah's knees nearly gave out again. Ethan felt the room behind him tighten. There it was, the name behind the voice. Richard's gaze slid to Rex, and for a second, something unreadable crossed his face. Disgust or caution. "We don't need a scene," Richard said. "We can settle this quietly. Hannah signs the agreement. Derek releases her car. Everyone sleeps." Ethan's voice was low. "You threatened her child." Richard's smile didn't change. "I stated reality. Winter is hard." Lucas stepped forward. "Sir, you're on camera, and this conversation is being recorded." Richard's eyes flickered, just once, toward the camera. He wasn't used to being recorded without consent. Ethan spoke again, calm as stone. "You picked the wrong town for a quiet crime." Richard laughed softly, like Ethan had made a joke. "And who are you?" Ethan didn't raise his voice. "Ethan Cole, former Navy SEAL." Derek's face tightened. He looked like he wanted to spit. Richard's expression shifted just a hair. Not fear. Respect for risk. Lucas's radio crackled. Another voice. Officer Grant, we've got the alley unit. The planted box matches the shipping label. Also, we've got another victim on the line. Same agreement, same threats. Hannah's eyes widened. Caleb exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. Richard's smile finally thinned. You don't understand how this works, he said, voice colder now. Ethan stepped half a pace closer to the door, not crossing it, just making sure Richard could see his eyes. Oh, Ethan said quietly. I do. Lucas raised his hand. Richard Halden, you're being detained pending investigation for intimidation, coercion, and evidence tampering. Derek Voss, you too. Derek's mouth opened. This is bull. Rex shifted. Just one step. Derek stopped talking. Not because Rex growled, because Rex didn't have to. Richard's jaw worked, like he was chewing on a new reality. Then he lifted his hands, slow. Fine, he said. Let's do it your way. Lucas signaled, and officers moved in with controlled steps, hands steady, no chaos, no shouting. The snow kept falling. Inside the bakery, Hannah sagged against the counter, tears spilling. But this time her tears didn't look like surrender. They looked like release. An hour later, Sophie arrived wrapped in a puffy coat, cheeks pink from sleep and cold. Mabel Quinn, late 60s, round-faced, kind-eyed, with silver hair tucked under a wool hat and flower on her sleeves, guided the little girl inside. Sophie ran to Hannah without hesitation. Hannah dropped to her knees and held her daughter like she'd been holding her breath for a week. Ethan turned away, giving them privacy the way you gave someone space to breathe. Rex sat beside him, watching the reunion, tail still, eyes softening. Mabel approached Ethan with a paper bag. You look like a man who forgot to eat, she said, voice warm and blunt. Ethan blinked. I'm fine. Mabel snorted. That's what men say right before they fall over. Even Lucas cracked a tired smile. Mabel pressed the bag into Ethan's hands anyway. Inside was a fresh loaf and something sweet that smelled like cinnamon. No charge, she said. But you have to promise me something. Ethan looked at her. What? Don't disappear without letting her say thank you, Mabel said, nodding toward Hannah. Ethan's throat tightened in a way he didn't like. He swallowed it down. Hannah stood, still holding Sophie's hand, and walked toward Ethan. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady now. I don't know how to repay you, she said. Ethan shook his head. You don't repay me. Sophie looked up at Rex, then held out a small cookie shaped like a star. For your dog, she whispered. Rex leaned forward gently and took it with careful teeth, then sat back like a gentleman. Sophie diggled. For the first time that night, the bakery sounded like a place that belonged to life again. Lucas moved closer, speaking low to Ethan. You passing through? Ethan glanced at the snow outside. The storm had softened. The road would still be icy, but it looked less like a trap now. Yeah, Ethan said, but not yet. He looked at Hannah, at Sophie, at Caleb standing straighter, and at Mabel wiping her hands on her apron like she'd just finished a normal night. The town had been bruised, not broken. Sometimes that was enough to heal. Ethan took a slow breath, then lifted his coffee mug in a small salute. Keep the cameras on, he said. Hannah smiled through tears. We will. Outside, the neon sign buzzed brighter than it had all night. warm light cutting a clean line through the snow. And inside Quinn's hearth, for the first time in a long time, fear wasn't the loudest thing in the room. Some nights, winter feels like it was made to test the heart. The roads turn slick, the air bites, and fear tries to tell people they are alone. But in Marquette, a weary mother found out something old and true. God can place help at the exact moment it is needed, sometimes in the form of a quiet man with a stiff left leg, and sometimes in the steady eyes of a loyal German shepherd. Rex never needed noise to be brave. He stood like a guardian, watching hands, reading danger, holding the line with calm strength. And Ethan did what many forget is still possible. He chose restraint over rage, truth over chaos, and protection over pride. Call it timing. Call it providence. Call it a small miracle that showed up on a cold night and refused to leave. If this story warmed your heart, carry that warmth forward. Someone near you may be fighting a battle in silence, praying for one safe moment. Share if you believe in angels with pause. Comment Amen to bless our veterans. Subscribe for the next story.